Hi everyone, this is Shannon, and I wanted to do a PowerPoint here about why I sell online. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and um, the more I've been doing it and the longer I've been doing it, I get a lot of questions from people just in my personal life. Um, and I feel like I keep getting the same questions over and over and over, where people ask, number one, why are you doing it? Because I was going to be a lawyer before I actually started doing this. So it's kind of shocking to a lot of people. Like, why would I choose doing this over being a lawyer? Um, and also, just there are people in my life who are interested in selling online on eBay and Etsy, not necessarily trying to make it their living like I do. They just want to sell some extra things that they have around the house, but they either don't know how to do it or they just don't know how to get motivated. Um, and honestly, if you already had the motivation, it's kind of like anything else in life. If you have motivation to learn something, there are things on the internet all over the place that you can teach yourself. Like, if you wanted to learn Spanish, there are so many outlets out there for you to learn Spanish. You don't need to go to your friend who knows Spanish and say, "Hey, friend, teach me how to speak Spanish." It's like, no, just go on the internet and find a tutorial on YouTube. You don't need me to know how to do that. And that's how I feel about eBay and selling online. You don't need to be friends with someone who sells online to learn how to do it, because all the resources are already there for you. There's books, there's tutorials on YouTube, there are podcasts, there's even TV shows on Spike and History Channel and all over the place that are dedicated to people selling online. So you don't need me to explain that to you. That's why I'm just going to talk about the benefits and the concept of how to find your inventory, because I think that that's the number one thing that people have issues with. Is they'll say, okay, I know how to list something on eBay, but how do I find stuff? Tell me how to find the things. And I'm like, well, it's not as simple as me being like, go to Goodwill, go to a thrift store, go to a yard sale. And they stand in the middle of the yard sale and they're like, I don't know what to look for. So it's more about a mindset where you need to know what you're looking for. And I'm going to try my best to teach how to change your mindset to get good at finding things, because I think that that's the skill that really separates the people from who just try this out and then give up, and the people who actually keep going and they keep actually making money. So I'm going to try to get started here. These are the reasons why it would be good to sell online, no matter who you are. Number one, obviously, it's extra income. And not a lot of people realize this, but even if you already have a job and you have no plans of quitting your job, you just want to sell money on eBay on the side, or not just eBay, on Etsy or anywhere on the internet, you can sell up to $20,000 of items per year tax-free. And the reason why you can do that is because the government only cares about your capital gains. So, for example, if you were to go to a wholesaler in China and buy something for 25 cents each, and then you go and turn around and you sell it for $1, your capital gain is 75 cents, okay? But if you bought a TV last year and you spent $500 on that TV, and then the money that you spent originally on that item was paid for through taxes. You earned your money in a job, you paid your income taxes. Once you've paid your income taxes, you're allowed to use that money on whatever you want. So if you bought a $500 TV and 3 years later you want to sell it, but it's only worth $200, you don't have to pay taxes on that $200, because you already paid the taxes when you originally bought that TV. And I hope that makes sense. So basically, the government understands that you've already been taxed on that money. So you can sell things around your house for up to $20,000 per year tax-free. And no one is checking on you. Like, if you buy something from Goodwill and you sell it on the internet, the IRS is not going to demand to know, did you have that originally, did you buy that with money that you got from a job, or did you buy that from Goodwill and you're making a capital gain? Underneath $20,000, they really don't care. Number two is that you make your own schedule, which is kind of self-explanatory. If you work online, you can do it whenever you want. You can do it after work, on the weekends, basically whenever you feel like it. You can have it align with your hobbies. And a lot of people will actually use this to pay for their hobbies. So if you have a hobby where you collect something, you make a craft, you make models, you make whatever, and you get tired of something and you sell some of your old stuff just so that you can make money to pay for your new hobbies, or you have older video games and you decide, you know what, I don't want this game anymore. I'm going to sell this old game that I don't play anymore and I'm going to buy a new game with it. It's kind of like recycling your money instead of constantly buying new stuff all the time and just letting your other stuff pile up. The next reason would be that it would clean up your clutter. And America is one of the countries where, actually one of the only countries that has this tendency to just accumulate a lot of stuff. And what ends up happening is that when people move, or someone passes away, or something happens in your life where you realize you need to downsize to a smaller apartment or a smaller house or whatever, people just feel so overwhelmed that they have to downsize and they just get rid of everything. They donate it, they sell it for dirt cheap at a yard sale or whatever. So selling online the things that you no longer need is a way for you to have a cleaner living space, and you also get more money back for those things. If you're actually taking your time and you're selling it before it becomes an emergency, then you're going to be making more money in the long run. So the last reason is work harder equals more money. And the reason why I wrote that is because this is the type of job where the amount of time you put into it and the amount of work you put into it directly translates into how much money you make. And you can't say that for almost any other job that exists. Like, if I was working minimum wage, and I've worked a lot of different jobs, I've had probably a different summer job every summer since I was 14. I've done, there's been times where I worked 3 jobs at once. I've done so many different things with my life. And, I could be making $7.25 an hour. Well, it's, the minimum wage went up to $8.25 in New Jersey, or $8.50 or whatever it is. But, you could be working so hard that you're about to pass out at the end of the day, but, or the next day you could decide, you know what, I'm just going to stand around and I'm not going to do anything unless my manager tells me to. So no matter how hard or how much effort you're putting into your job, you're still going to leave that job making the same amount of money. Or if you're sitting at your desk and you think, you know what, today I don't really feel like doing all this stuff today. I'm going to do, just sit here and play Fruit Ninja for an hour. And, that when you work a normal job, it doesn't always translate to more money. And that was something that always frustrated me about, having a normal job, is that I'm the kind of person where I get bored really easily. So I actually work harder because I just can't stand around doing nothing or playing games or whatever. I just can't. So I would always work harder than everybody else when I was in retail and jobs like that. But I was getting paid the same as the people that were doing nothing. So to me, that's not fair. And that's another reason why I really like this kind of job, because the harder I work, the more money I make. A huge benefit, and probably the number one, at least for me, is that you can work from anywhere. So here, these top 2 are from my Instagram, because I work at a college during the actual school year. I'm off in the summers. So here's an example of, on the left-hand side is an Excel sheet I had to use for the actual job I was doing. And on the right, I had my laptop that I brought from home where I was doing online work. And I would do the online work when there was downtime from doing this, because it was like, 8 hours at a time, and I only probably have to do actual work maybe 2 hours out of those 8. So obviously, in a normal circumstance, if I wasn't doing online work, I would probably be watching Netflix or whatever, and that's fine. And I watched a lot of Netflix anyway, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't, but it's just a way for you to make more money with the free time that you already have if you have a job that's kind of similar to mine. Right here is our family has a shore house, and this is my aunt actually lives in the same neighborhood as our shore house. So this is a view of her back porch, and I loaded a lot of work. On a weekday, I'm hanging out with my aunt, and then I go down the street to my house, and I was able to get work done on my laptop, and I woke up the next day and went to the beach. So, how many people can say that they take their work and they can go literally anywhere in the world and get their work done? That's just usually not the case unless you do something online. And I just put Starbucks here because that's kind of the obvious go-to if you want to go work somewhere that's not in your house. But that's kind of self-explanatory. So recently, my brother told me about this guy called Magnus Walker, and he's pretty, he's pretty inspirational, and I feel like we have a lot of the similar ways that we're approaching life and the way that we feel about business and everything. And he said, success is the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And that's basically my definition of success too. Not being forced to go to a job that you hate, a job that you have no interest in, a job that stresses you out. I personally decided not to do that. But like I said, this video isn't just for the people that want to make this, this isn't just if you want to make this your full-time living. This is if you want to do this on the side as well. But even if you're doing it on the side, keep in mind that if you make extra money on the side, you can probably, if you have 2 jobs, you have a second part-time job or something, you can get rid of that second job if you start making enough money on eBay. So just think to yourself, what would you rather be doing with your time? And can selling online help you do that? And this is a basic list of the steps in the process. And in this slideshow, I'm going to focus on step number 1 because there's just so much to talk about that I knew that there was no way I could get through all of these steps. So step number 1 is find your inventory. Step 2 is research the price. Step 3 is clean and or repair the items that you've gotten or that you had in your house. Number 4 is take photos and Photoshop. If you have a different kind of photo editing program, that's fine too. Step 5 is to actually list on eBay or Etsy or Amazon or wherever you plan on selling stuff online. Step 6 is customer service and feedback. Step 7 is shipping your products. Step 8 is relisting, because most websites have a limit on how long you can keep items on the internet. Sometimes you have to pay for those items to stay up every month, or sometimes you get to list them for free and you pay fees to the website after they sell, but that's going to depend on the website. But most of the time, you can't just list it and forget it unless you have a store. So you need to be mindful of making sure, and that kind of goes into step number 9. You have to maintain your inventory. You have to make sure you have enough stuff online at any given time for you to be making the money that you want to be making. And you also have to maintain in the way that you figure out what you want to get rid of if you've had it for too long or anything like that. But I'm planning on hopefully making videos on all of these steps, but today we're just going to focus on step 1. So you should find your inventory. For most new sellers, I would recommend starting here, and this looks like somebody's office or workroom or junk room or whatever you want to call it. And then, because if you want to get started immediately and you don't even have money to get yourself started, the best place to start is your own house, your own bedroom, your own basement or attic. Almost everyone has something that they can sell on eBay to get themselves started. This is a Goodwill outlet, and they're usually in these warehouses, and I go to these all the time. That's also a good place to find inventory, but it's not enough to say to someone, find something in your house or find something at the Goodwill outlet, because I can't tell you how many times I've brought friends and family to the Goodwill outlet and they just stand there and they don't know what to get. And they say to me, Shannon, just tell me what to get. Just tell me what to look for. And I try to give them a list, and then they come back with something and I'm like, no. So, and I quickly realized that it's less about being clear cut and saying, go here, go there, buy this, buy that. You can't really think with that mindset because it's not that simple. You have to kind of understand the concepts behind it. And that's going to be like the meat of what I'm trying to get through to you in this video. So this slide is if you're starting at home. And I know that for a lot of people, it's really hard to get rid of stuff, especially if you feel like you're sentimentally attached. Or some people have this mindset where it's like, I feel like I'm going to need this someday. And that is so common for people, is that they look at something and they're like, you know what, I really don't want this, but what if, especially with clothes and women, they think, what if I gained weight? What if I lost weight? What if I blank? What if I needed to go to a funeral? What if I needed to go to a wedding? And that's just clothes, but that kind of, that counts for almost everything in our lives, is that we hold on to a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily need until we move. And once we move, it's like, okay, let me get rid of all this stuff. So a little over a year ago, there was something that happened in my family, and I guess I'm not going to really get into the whole story, but someone that I really love and care about a lot had to pack up their car and literally just leave. And he left so much behind, and it affected me so much that every time I know I need to sell something, I know I need to get rid of stuff, I know I have too much stuff, I just have to remind myself constantly, if I had to pack everything that mattered to me in my car and drive away and never be able to come back and can never come back and get this stuff, what would I take with me? And when I ask myself, and I it's kind of similar to when people say, if your house was on fire, what would you grab? But I really don't feel like that's a fair question, because the odds of people having their house go on fire, like, that doesn't happen as often as now in this economy, people having to downsize and people having to change their ways of life. And I think it's a lot more feasible to imagine that there could be something in your life, an event in your life, where even if, and the person that I mentioned earlier, he worked really hard all his life. And there was a time where he was making a lot of money and he lost everything. And that can happen to any one of us. None of us are immune to a life-changing event that can make us lose everything. And you really just have to look around and examine, what is important to me? Is it really that important to me that I would, use up the precious space in my car if I was never coming back again? And if the answer is no, I can live without that, then it's okay for you to sell it on eBay, because deep down, I'm never actually going to use this again. And I have a picture of this guy called Louis Cole. He's an English YouTuber. And his whole life is basically traveling around the world. He doesn't have his own apartment. He doesn't have a car. He used to have a car, but he doesn't even own a car. He doesn't have a house or anything, and he's in his 30s. But he is so successful even though he owns almost nothing. He has a MacBook, a couple cameras, a few pairs of clothes. He owns almost nothing, but he gets to travel the world and do his work online and make videos about his adventures, and he has like the most amazing life, and I wish I had his life. So that's kind of, hashtag goals. So his life is basically kind of what I strive for. And it's an example of, success is not necessarily having a lot of stuff. It's not necessarily having a bigger house. Success is what you make it. And you don't have to hold on all this extra stuff. If you need that money for something, just sell it. And really, if you end up realizing, oh, I'm really disappointed that I sold that, what's the big deal? You're going to have to go out and buy it again. And that has happened to me where I'm like, oh, I feel bad that I sold that thing, but it's okay. I have more money now than I did 3 years ago when I sold it. So that means I can go out and buy it again. And it's okay. It's okay to let go. So, next slide. Another thing you have to keep in mind when you're going through your own personal things at home is that, this sounds like common sense to probably 90% of you, but I have met people in real life and online, but both places, that just don't seem to get it. They don't seem to understand why they can't sell their used Kmart and Walmart clothes and make money. And people are just not going to want to buy that. And you're better off giving it to Goodwill, giving it to the thrift stores, giving it to the church charity shops, because there are people out there who are so poor that they can use the dollar store items, the damaged stuff, the really out-of-date TVs, like the big boxy TVs. There are people out there that are so poor that they can use that, but that's not the sort of thing that you put on the internet. You can't make money from that. You just really can't. I also go to auctions every once in a while, like the old school, like you stand there and there's a guy with a gavel and, and it's amazing that, it'll be an entire moving truck full of cheap stuff and the starting bid is $5 and it's all full of this type of stuff and the entire moving truck goes for $5. So, don't even waste your time on trying to resell this kind of stuff if you own it, because I'm just telling you, I'm just trying to be real. Just, you're not going to make any money and it's a waste of time. The high resale value stuff are things that are timeless and popular, and you have that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of research. If you have a collection from when you were a kid and you're not sure if it's popular anymore, you might have to look that up. Like if you have a bunch of Pokemon stuff and you're like, hey, I wonder if Pokemon's still popular. Yeah, Pokemon is still awesome. And that's a good example of like, oh, well, I kept that in the attic, so I can sell my Pokemon stuff. Antiques, not all antiques are worth money. That's another thing you have to research. Limited edition items, like if there was, that's self-explanatory. If something was limited edition, usually it holds its value. Luxury items and utilitarian items, which I'll get to in a second. So the main question, I said this earlier, the main question that people ask me are, how do you know what to look for when you're in an atmosphere where there's just so much stuff? And this is a screenshot from the movie Citizen Kane, and I wrote here, what is Rosebud? Because if you've ever seen the movie, there's this really rich guy and he has so much stuff. Like you can see, this is a screenshot of this warehouse of just all these antiques and statues and stuff. And as he's dying, his last word was Rosebud. So all these people are freaking out, trying to find out what Rosebud is for this guy on his deathbed to care about it so much out of all of these things that he has. And that's kind of how it is when you're looking for something to buy and resell, because you kind of have to know what the rosebuds are. You can't just buy any of these things without knowing what it is beforehand and without having the correct mindset. So I'm going to try to get into that. Part of changing your mindset is thinking about the process of how things are made. And you can see that there's these look like some Chinese workers assembling iPhones, and here's a machine assembling cars, probably somewhere in Detroit or something. So if there are any car companies left in Detroit, I don't know. But whether it's being done by human beings or being done by machines, almost everything that is created has a purpose for why it was created. Things are not mass produced unless a company knows that people want that stuff. Do you understand how expensive it is to make stuff? And there are certain things that are flash in a pan, as seen on TV, fad, popular stuff that's made, and then no one wants it anymore after that. But for the most part, there's a purpose behind almost everything that's made. And once you start thinking or in that mindset, and you pick up an object and you ask yourself, why was this made? How many of these were made? Why would somebody want this? Why would a company take the time to actually mass produce this thing? And once you start asking yourself that, it really honestly helps. And along with the packing your car thing, it's another thing that I constantly have to remind myself when I'm trying to decide if I'm going to buy something or not, especially if I don't have a phone on me, I don't have internet access, and I have to just trust my gut. I have to just think to myself, like, why was this made? How much money would have gone into this? Is this worth it for me to buy this? So, I'm sure there are other things or other reasons why things are made, but I broke it down into all of these different bullet points. 1 is utilitarian needs, 2 would be popularity, 3 would be comfort, and 4 would be for collectors and luxury items. So if you're not aware, the word utilitarian basically means something that you use, something that is going to be useful to you. It's not a knickknack. It's not something that you're going to just end up using and throwing away. It's something that, like a washing machine, you need it to wash clothes. It is something that you need every single day or once a week if you're single or whatever. You're going to need this. And if it breaks down, chances are you're going to try to have someone come in and fix it. Same with a car. If your car has an issue, you're going to have someone come in and fix it. You're not going to go and get a new car just because one thing goes wrong. And I have a picture of a girl with a sewing pattern and some fabric and stuff because I have 2 sewing pattern stores. So in my mind, that's the utilitarian thing that I chose to focus on, because even though I live in New Jersey and there aren't as many women around here who sew, there are a lot of women down south and in lower income areas and rural areas who still sew a lot. And me, the research that I've put into fashion and sewing helps me make money because I realize, like, okay, these are the tools that people need to make clothing. So if you're this kind of person and you're all about the utilitarian needs, you might want to start thinking about objects in your life, the things that interest you. For example, you could start selling car parts. If cars interest you, you could be a car salesperson. If utilities interest you, you could start finding old broken washing machines and resell them on Craigslist. There's all different. I can't spell out exactly what you should do. And I think that that's what people want me to do most of the time. They'll say, Shannon, just tell me what to do. But in reality is you need to think about the different types of things that are sold and what really resonates with you as an individual. Popular, an example of things that are popular, I think I mentioned earlier the as seen on TV popular items, and they don't stay popular for very long. And to be completely honest, that's not a very good business strategy to focus all of your energy on something that is popular today but might not necessarily be popular tomorrow. But there are certain things that are popular and they've stayed popular for a consistent number of years. And an example of that would be American Girl. I think they've been around since the 90s because I'm 25 and I had an American Girl when I was younger, but it's still a huge industry. And it's so huge and so popular that generations after generations of women are getting American Girls. And I have a feeling that it's going to stay popular for at least a few more generations. And this is an example of a doll that's brand new, official from American Girl. It's $120 just for the doll, the book, and this basic outfit. Whereas you can get a knockoff version of American Girl. These dolls are the same height. They kind of look the same, but not really. It's the same kind of concept as an American Girl. And if you buy our generation clothes, they will fit the American Girl. So that's only $24 for all of this stuff. So it's kind of like getting a really expensive car versus getting a cheaper Asian made car. You can decide, I bought the BMW, but I want to get the Walmart stuff inside of it because I already spent all my money on the BMW. You could get the base doll and then start buying our generation clothes for your daughter. But then there's people out there who are like, I have a BMW. I want everything in my car to be a BMW. And that kind of concept goes across the board with just about everything that's popular. And you just need to step back. And obviously, it does not have to be dolls. This is just an example. Think about the things that you like and the things that you enjoy and that are popular from your life experiences and what you know to be desirable that people really want to buy. Comfort is things that make our life more comfortable, obviously. And I brought up Home Goods, which is a store that's nothing but home decor, interior design. IKEA, which is furniture and lighting and more interior design type stuff. And Best Buy, which has electronics, TVs, computers, video games, things like that. So thinking about the things that make us feel good, the things that are going to make our lives easier, like if you wanted to sell art, if you want to sell furniture, if you want, all of these things are really good selling items online, especially for the things that are normally expensive. And for you, that is going to vary and that's going to be different depending on what you're interested in. And you're probably already thinking of examples in your mind. And it's good to just roll with it. If you think of something in your mind like, oh man, I have this painting and it was so popular at IKEA and they don't make it anymore. So let me go research on the internet to see if people still want to buy this IKEA painting. And believe it or not, there are probably people out there who actually want that IKEA painting because it's not out there anymore. So, just if you have a spark of an idea, just roll with it. And that's what all of this is about. You just get a spark of an idea and you research it on eBay and look underneath the sold items to see if things are actually selling or if people are just trying to get rid of it and no one's actually buying it. And that's really where you get started. There's such a thing as brand loyalty, and some of you out there might already be brand loyal. But if you aren't, it might be a little bit of a foreign concept to you. And this guy is named Magnus Walker, and I actually quoted him earlier. I thought this was a really good quote from his TED Talk. Well, he's obviously a Porsche collector. He also restores Porsches. And he said, I call it Porsche passion. It's something you really can't build, and you can't market it, and you can't sell it. It's just sort of there. So he's calling it, because he's British, so he's like Porsche instead of Porsche, whatever. Porsche passion. So that's what he calls it. And he's not the only person on the planet who has this passion. If you find anything that's with a Porsche logo, there's going to be somebody out there who wants to buy that because they are a Porsche collector. And I gave an example of this Ford cowboy hat, which is basically the most redneck thing I've ever found in my life. It's so fantastic. And I was listing it for about $45 because that's what it's worth. But our friend Will came over, and he has a Ford pickup truck, and I had to think for a second because he actually does live on a farm. So he lives on a farm. He has a Ford pickup truck, and he was like, oh my God, I need this hat in my life. So we traded something that I wanted, and he got this hat in exchange. So that's an example of, our friend Will is Ford all the way, and he just was really happy to get this hat. So and it's not just cars, it's almost any brand you can think of where there's a loyalty attached to it. That's usually a good place to start when it comes to finding inventory that you want to resell. Luxury kind of goes hand in hand with brand loyalty. It's timeless, as in a lot of these luxury brands have been around for generation after generation. And the reason why is because usually those things are so well made that they can be passed on from generation to generation. Like a lot of people have Rolexes that were passed down to them from their older relatives. And same with Chanel. They make such good products that it usually lasts for a long time, and it usually never goes out of fashion. It's hard to get into, as in there are people out there who want to own luxury products and they want to get into that club, I guess. I don't really know how else to describe it, like the status. But they can't afford to go to the actual store and buy it. So a lot of people go on eBay and they want to find it. But it's also hard to get into selling it because you kind of need more money to buy these things up front. And then there's a fanatical fan base, which is kind of what I already said. It kind of goes hand in hand with the Porsche passion. But there's a huge red flag when it comes to luxury because there are so many fakes out there that you need to do a lot of research, because you can actually get in legal trouble if you try selling something that's luxury and it's actually fake. So if you find something, you need to be diligent and you need to make sure that it's real. Sometimes you need documentation to make sure that it's real. You can't just, there's so many fake Rolexes out there. There's so much fake everything out there that you need to be very, very careful before you actually jump into this. Then there are people out there who are the topic collectors. And, there's some people out there that just collect owl things. And they're like, you know what? It's an owl. I want it. It's a cute owl. I'm putting it on my owl shelf. And then there's people out there. This is a bedroom of an otaku, which is someone who really likes anime. And this is like, you see video games and figures and all that stuff. And it almost seems like this person doesn't really seem to care what anime it is. They just seem to really like anime in general. So that's what I mean with topic collectors. So if you have something that people out there collect, it's probably a good idea to actually go out there and sell it, whether you have it in your house already or whether you're looking somewhere out in the world and you're thinking about buying it to resell. The biggest tips that I have for people are to have space prepared either for photographing your items or for holding your inventory and your packing items and all that stuff. I have a picture of the book called Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso because she actually has a multi-million-dollar company called Nasty Gal, and she started off living in a one-room apartment, like a studio apartment, selling on eBay, doing exactly what I'm doing, but her entire apartment, I wish I had the direct quote, but the basic gist of the story is that her entire apartment was wall-to-wall stuff. And she said she had a little pathway to her bed, and the rest of the apartment was just stuff. And from the moment she woke up till the moment she went to sleep, she was listing stuff on eBay. And that's kind of how my life is right now. But you have to understand that if you don't have the space to do it, that is a huge part of getting into this business. You have to really be devoted to it if you're trying to go above and beyond just selling stuff around your house. Number two is that you have to understand that mistakes happen. No matter who you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how, if you had straight A's in school like I did, it doesn't matter how good you think you are at something. You're going to make a mistake, and you're going to have to learn how to get over those mistakes, and you're going to have to learn how to work with it. And you're going to have to just move past it, because if you make one mistake and you get frustrated and you decide to give up, then you're losing an opportunity to make a lot of money. And you just have to understand right from the get-go, you are going to make a mistake. No matter who you are, you're going to make a mistake, and it's okay. And number three, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It's okay to let go. So it's okay to let go of the things in your house if you're not using them anymore. It's okay to let go if you bought something a year ago and you realize, oh my God, this was a mistake. I spent $20 on this. This was so stupid of me to spend $20. I can't believe I did that. It's okay. Just let it go. If it was a mistake to buy it, it's okay. Donate it to the thrift store. Just get rid of it. Clear up more space, because space equals money. And if that space is being used up by something that is not going to make you money, just let it go. It's that simple. You don't have to get upset about it. You don't have to hold on to it for 5 years in hopes that it will eventually sell. Just let it go. And the biggest lesson that I think that I could ever put out there is stay true to yourself and to have fun. And I don't know if you've ever seen American Pickers, but basically that's Mike Wolf and that's Frank Fritz. And I think that they've been doing what I've been doing for about 25 years. So obviously they've been doing it before the internet was even a thing. They'll go to barns and yard sales and antique shows and find things to resell. And their specialty is motorcycles and vintage cars and Petroliana and things like that, because that's what they love and that's what their passion is. And, just because I focus on sewing patterns doesn't mean that, and just because I'm successful with it, just because I sell multiple sewing patterns every day, that doesn't mean that you should turn around and do that. Because if you don't sew, you're not into fashion, you're not into fashion design, you're going to hate your life. And you're going to think, why am I doing this? I hate sewing patterns. I'm burning all of them. So, same with these guys. They found the topic that they're interested in, and it keeps them going. And that is something that nobody on this planet can say to you. Nobody on this planet can tell you what you are the most interested in except for yourself. And just know what you like, know what you're interested in, and focus on that first and apply all of the principles that I talked about throughout this video, and you will find something. And I'm not afraid to even give away my secrets like this, because I understand that there's so many things in life, like life is so diverse and dynamic that you will always find something to sell that the person next to you is not selling. So there's enough room for everybody. There's enough room for like basically everybody on this in this country. I believe if you started selling on eBay, it wouldn't rub out the competition for the rest of us. So just find what you love and do it. And you can make a lot of extra money on the side. You can start having a more relaxed lifestyle. If you are making extra money, you can have a cleaner life. You can just, sell the stuff you don't want so that you can get a big screen TV or whatever your goals are. Selling online can actually really help to get you there. And I'm going to end this video here. If you're interested, make comments on this YouTube video and I'll try to answer any questions. If this gets a good response, I'll make more of the bullet points I mentioned earlier. But thanks for watching if you actually listened this far. All right, thank you. Bye.